The SOS that brought Deathworlders to the Warzone, the Harakamata, arrived at dawn. 300 warships darkened the sky above Velos 4. 80,000 soldiers prepared to descend. Every weapon in the Dominion's arsenal was primed and ready. Captain Junho stood on the bridge of the Iron Wake and watched them come. His ship was damaged. His crew was exhausted. The Concord reinforcements were still hours away. He had maybe 50 soldiers capable of fighting. Against an army. The math was simple. They could not win. They could not even survive. But somewhere in the ruins behind them, 300 refugees were waiting. Children were hiding in bunkers. Old ones were praying to their gods. Wounded ones were sleeping under the care of Dr. Yuna, trusting that the humans would protect them. Junho would not abandon them. He could not. He called a meeting in the cargo bay. His crew gathered around him. Soldiers with bandaged wounds. Officers with dark circles under their eyes. Every one of them knew what was coming. "I will not lie to you," Junho said. "The situation is bad. We are outnumbered, outgunned. Help is coming, but it will not arrive in time." He paused, looking at their faces. Sergeant Taiwu steady and calm. Lieutenant Hana already calculating odds that could not be calculated. Corporal Menho, young but unafraid. Dr. Yuna, who had saved so many lives and might lose them all today. "We have a choice," Junho continued. "We can leave. Take the ship, run. No one would blame us. We have done more than anyone expected. More than anyone had any right to ask." Silence. No one moved. No one spoke. Or we can stay. We can fight. We can hold the line until help arrives or until we die trying. He took a breath. "I know what I'm going to do, but I will not order anyone to follow me. This has to be your choice." Taiwu was the first to speak. "Captain, do you remember what you said when we first received that distress call? You said someone was asking for help. You said you could not ignore that." Junho nodded. "Well," Taiwu continued, "there are children down in those bunkers. Kids who have been through hell. Kids who finally believe they are safe because we told them so." He stepped forward. "I am not leaving them. I do not care how many Harak come. They want those kids. They go through me first." Minho moved to stand beside him. "Same." Hannah closed her laptop. "I have run the numbers. Our chances are approximately 0. But 0 is just a number. It does not account for stubbornness." Dr. Yuna smiled tiredly. "I became a doctor to save lives. I plan to keep doing that until I cannot anymore." One by one, every member of the crew stepped forward. Humans did not abandon each other. They did not abandon their promises. It was not in their nature. Junho felt something warm in his chest. Pride. Love. The knowledge that whatever happened next, he was surrounded by the best people he had ever known. "Then we fight," he said. "Taiwu, I want you at the bunker entrance. That is our final line. No one gets past you. Understood? Hannah, take the Iron Wake up. Draw as much fire as you can. Make them think we have more ships than we do. I can do that. Minho, you are on heavy weapons. I want every Harak transport that tries to land turned into scrap." "Yes, sir." "Yuna, keep the medical bay running as long as possible. Save who you can. I will." Junho looked at them all one more time. His family. His pack. Let us show these bastards what Deathworlders are made of. The battle began 30 minutes later. The Iron Wake rose into the sky, engines screaming. Hana flew like a demon, dodging enemy fire, launching attacks from impossible angles. The human ship was small, but it was fast and tough. It destroyed 2 Harak cruisers before they even realized it was a threat. On the ground, Minho set up his position on a hilltop overlooking the landing zones. He had salvaged every heavy weapon he could find. Human weapons, Harak weapons, even some old Concorde equipment. The first transport came down trailing smoke from Minho's opening shots. It crashed into the ruins and exploded. The second transport made it halfway before Minho found its fuel cells. The third decided to land somewhere else, but there were too many. Transports were landing all across the moon. Harak soldiers poured out, thousands of them, advancing on the refugee camps. Taiwu's squad met them at the perimeter. The fighting was brutal. Close quarters. Hand to hand. Humans against Harak in the smoke and fire and blood. It should have been a slaughter. 15 soldiers against thousands. It was a slaughter. But not the way the Harak expected. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not stand in lines and trade fire. They moved. They adapted. They worked together like parts of a single organism. Taiwu fought at the front, leading every charge, taking hits that would have killed any other soldier. His armor was shattered. His flesh was burned and bleeding. But he kept moving, kept killing, kept holding the line. Behind him, his soldiers followed. They covered each other. They saved each other. When one fell, another took their place. When they ran out of ammunition, they used captured weapons. When those ran out, they used knives and fists and teeth. The Harak had never faced anything like this. They were used to enemies who broke, enemies who fled, enemies who surrendered when the battle turned against them. Humans did not break. Humans did not flee. Humans did not surrender. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky. The pile of enemy bodies grew into mountains. Taiwu took a plasma bolt to the leg and kept fighting. Minho was buried in rubble when his position was bombed and dug himself out to keep shooting. A soldier named Jisoo lost an arm and used her remaining hand to throw grenades until she passed out from blood. Lost. Dr. Yuna worked without rest. She saved soldiers who should have died. She saved refugees who had given up hope. She worked until her hand shook and her vision blurred. And then she kept working anyway. In orbit, Hana performed miracles. She destroyed 7 ships before the Ironwake's weapons finally gave out. Then she ran the Harak destroyer, sacrificing the ship's forward section to take out the enemy bridge. The Ironwake tumbled toward the surface, burning. Hana managed to guide it down, crashing into a field far from the refugee camps. She crawled from the wreckage, bleeding and dazed, and started walking back toward the battle. By the 4th hour, Taiwu's squad was down to 8 soldiers. They had fallen back to the bunker entrance. The last line, the children were behind them. The old ones, the wounded, everyone who could not fight. Tessa was there too. She had refused to hide. She stayed at the entrance, helping Yuna treat the wounded, carrying ammunition to the soldiers. She was not a fighter, but she would not abandon the ones who had come to save her. "They keep coming," Minho said. His voice was hoarse. His ammunition was almost gone. "Then we keep killing them," Taiwu replied. Another wave of Harak soldiers appeared from the smoke. Hundreds of them. More than the humans could possibly defeat. Taiwu raised his weapon. His hands were steady. His heart was calm. "For Earth," he said. "For the ones we came to save." The humans opened fire, and then the sky exploded. Light. Blinding. Beautiful light. Something was descending through the clouds. Not one ship. Dozens of ships. Hundreds of ships. The UNSC fleet had arrived. 20 dreadnoughts broke through the atmosphere, their cannons already firing. The Harak ships in orbit vanished in balls of flame. Transport ships were vaporized before they could land. The entire enemy fleet began to retreat, scrambling to escape the sudden onslaught. On the ground, human soldiers poured from landing craft. Fresh troops. Full armor. Unlimited ammunition. They swept through the Harak lines like a wave, pushing the enemy back, liberating the camps, securing the survivors. Taiwu fell to his knees. He did not have the strength to stand anymore, but he was smiling. A young officer ran up to him. "Sergeant, are you all right?" "I am now," Taiwu said. The battle was over. The war was changed forever. In the aftermath, Commander Auric walked through the battlefield with Captain Jung-ho. The alien was silent for a long time, looking at the bodies, the wreckage, the evidence of what humans could do. "We underestimated you," Auric said finally. "The entire galaxy underestimated you." Jung-ho did not answer. He was watching Yuna carry an injured child toward a medical transport. He was watching Hana coordinate the evacuation with calm efficiency. He was watching Minho share his food with starving refugees. "You are terrifying," Auric continued. "Your endurance, your aggression, your willingness to die for strangers. But that is not what makes you dangerous. What is?" Jung-ho asked. Auric pointed at the humans helping the refugees. Soldiers who had just fought the battle of their lives, now carrying water and bandages and hope. "That," Auric said, "the way you care, the way you protect, the way you make others believe they matter." Jung-ho nodded slowly. "We call it empathy," he said. "It is the reason we fight. Not for conquest, not for glory, but because someone needed help, and we were there to give it." Auric was quiet for a long time. Then he extended his hand, mimicking the human gesture he had seen. "I believe," he said, "that this is the beginning of a new era." Jung-ho took his hand and shook it. "I hope so." In the bunker, Kessa sat with the children she had fought to protect. They were safe now, fed, warm, alive. A human soldier approached her. It was Taiwu, bandaged and exhausted, but still standing. "Hey," he said softly. Kessa looked up at him. The SOS that brought Deathworlders to the Warzone world spread through the Galactic Concord like fire. The Deathworlders had arrived in council chambers across 100 worlds. Leaders whispered about what had happened on Velos 4. A single human ship. 15 soldiers. They had stopped an army. They had saved thousands. It was impossible. It was terrifying. It was exactly what the Concord needed. Ambassador Velith received orders from her government. Negotiate with the Terrans. Secure their alliance. Whatever it takes. She arrived at the Ironwake 3 days after the battle. The ship was still on the surface, surrounded by refugees who refused to leave. Humans had become their protectors, and they would not abandon their protectors. Velith had studied humans before coming. She had read every file, every report, every analysis. She thought she was prepared. She was not. The first thing she noticed was the smell. Humans did not smell like other species. They smelled of sweat and blood and something else. Something chemical that her sensors identified as adrenaline. They smelled like hunters. The second thing she noticed was how they moved. Quick, efficient. Every motion had purpose. No wasted energy. No hesitation. They walked like predators, always aware of their surroundings, always ready for danger. The third thing she noticed was their eyes. Forward-facing. Designed for tracking prey. When a human looked at you, you felt like you were being evaluated. Like they were deciding if you were a threat or a meal. Velith was an insectoid. Her species had evolved from prey animals. Every instinct in her body screamed that she should run. She did not run. She was a diplomat. She had faced worse than this. Probably. Captain Jung-ho met her at the ship's entrance. He smiled and offered his hand, a human greeting she had read about. "Ambassador Velith," he said. "Welcome aboard." His hand was warm. His grip was strong. Velith forced herself not to flinch. "Captain Jung-ho," she replied. I am here to discuss a potential alliance between the Galactic Concord and the Terran people. Of course. Please, come in. The tour of the ship was educational. Velith saw the medical bay, where Dr. Yuna was still treating refugees. She saw the armory, where weapons were stored in quantities that would supply a Concord battalion. She saw the mess hall, where humans were eating. She watched Corporal Minho cook meat over an open flame. Real meat from an animal. He ate it with his bare hands, tearing the flesh with his teeth. Velith felt sick. Her species did not eat meat. No civilized species ate meat. It was barbaric, primitive, wrong. But she said nothing. She needed these barbarians. Lieutenant Hana noticed her discomfort and smiled. Sorry, she said. We should have warned you. Our diet is different from most species. Your species eats other creatures, Velith said carefully. We are omnivores. We can eat almost anything. Plants, animals, fungi. Even some things that would poison other species. Hana paused. On Earth, there is a fruit called the chili pepper. It produces a chemical designed to cause pain, to prevent animals from eating it. Humans eat it for fun. Velith stared at her. You eat poison for enjoyment? Some of us, yes. We call it spicy food. Velith added this to her growing list of reasons to be afraid of humans. The negotiations began in the captain's quarters. Velith presented the Concord's offer. Military alliance. Shared resources. Mutual defense. In exchange, Earth would gain access to galactic technology and trade. Junho listened politely. Then he shook his head. We are not interested in technology or trade, he said. We are not here to expand our empire or gain power. Velith was confused. Then why are you here? Because someone called for help. That cannot be the only reason. No species acts without self-interest. What do you want? Junho leaned back in his chair. He looked tired. The last few days had been hard on everyone. Ambassador, he said slowly, let me tell you about my grandmother. When she was young, there was a war on Earth. A terrible war. Millions of people died. Many of them died because when they called for help, no one came. Velith listened. She did not understand human history, but she could hear the pain in his voice. After that war, Junho continued, my grandmother made a promise. She promised that she would never ignore a call for help. And she taught me to make the same promise. But the cost, Velith protested. Your soldiers were wounded. Some nearly died. You gained nothing from this action. We saved 300 lives. They are not your species. They are not your allies. They are strangers. Junho smiled. Yes, they are. And we saved them anyway. That is who we are, Ambassador. That is what it means to be human. Velith did not know what to say. In her experience, species acted for profit, for power, for survival. The idea of risking everything for strangers was alien to her in the truest sense. Dr. Yuna entered the room. She was still wearing her medical clothes, still covered in stains that Velith did not want to identify. Sorry to interrupt, Yuna said. But I wanted to answer your question, Ambassador. What question? Yuna sat down. Her eyes were soft but steady. You asked why we help strangers. The answer is simple. We know what it feels like to need help. Every human knows. We are a young species. We have made terrible mistakes. We have hurt each other in ways that would horrify the galaxy. She paused, remembering things that Velith could not imagine. But we have also learned, Yuna continued. We have learned that helping others is not weakness. It is strength. When you help someone, you create a bond. You create trust. You create hope. Hope, Velith repeated. Yes, hope is the most powerful thing in the universe. more powerful than weapons or technology or armies. When people have hope, they can survive anything. When they lose hope, they die. Velith thought about the refugees outside. She had seen their faces when they looked at the humans. She had seen something there that she had not seen in the Concord for a year's hope. "We will help you," Junho said. "We will fight beside you. But we will not do it for technology or trade or power. We will do it because it is right." Velith looked at these creatures. These strange, terrifying, impossible creatures who ate meat and breathed poison and refused to abandon strangers. "I understand," she said quietly. "I will convey your terms to the Concord." Far away, in the heart of Harak space, a war council was convening. The generals had received reports from Velos 4. They had analyzed the human soldiers. They had studied their tactics, their weapons, their physiology. The conclusions were disturbing. General Kraft stood before the council, his cold eyes scanning the assembled commanders. "The Terrans are a Class 12 Deathworld species," he began. "Their homeworld has gravity 40% higher than galactic standard. Their atmosphere contains a corrosive gas that they require to survive. Their planet experiences extreme temperature variations that would kill any Concord species." The commanders shifted uneasily. "But that is not the most dangerous thing about them," Kraft continued. "The most dangerous thing is how they fight." He activated a holographic display. Images appeared. Humans in combat. Humans taking wounds that should have been fatal. Humans continuing to fight after losing limbs, after being burned, after being shot multiple times. "They do not stop," Kraft said. "Their bodies produce chemicals that allow them to ignore pain. They can function on no sleep for days. They heal from injuries that would kill us. And they form emotional bonds with each other that make them willing to die for their companions. Then we destroy them before more arrive," one commander suggested. "That may not be possible. We have analyzed their breeding patterns. They reproduce quickly. Their population on Earth numbers in the billions. If we provoke them, if we give them a reason to enter this war fully, we will face an army of creatures who feel nothing but aggression and loyalty." Silence filled the chamber. "What do you recommend?" the council leader asked. Kraft was quiet for a moment. "We must strike now, before they establish a foothold, before they bring more ships. We throw everything at Velos 4. We destroy them completely. We make the Concord understand that allying with Terrans will only bring destruction." The council agreed. Orders were given. The entire Harak fleet began to mobilize. 300 warships, 80,000 soldiers. Every weapon they had, they would annihilate the humans. They would prove that no Deathworld species could threaten the Harak Dominion. They did not know that this was exactly what the humans expected. They did not know that Captain Junho had already sent a message to Earth. Help was coming. Real help. The kind of help that would change the galaxy forever. On the Iron Wake, Junho sat alone in his quarters. He had just received confirmation from Earth Command. The fleet was on its way. 20 dreadnoughts. 200 support vessels. The United Nations Space Command was coming. He looked at a photograph on his desk. His grandmother, young and fierce, wearing a military uniform. She had died years ago, but he still heard her voice sometimes. "Never ignore a call for help," she had always said, "because someday you might be the one calling." Junho closed his eyes. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. Tomorrow, he would find out if his promise was worth the price. But tonight, he allowed himself a moment of peace. Tonight, he remembered why he fought. For the strangers. For the hopeless. For the ones who called out into the darkness, hoping someone would answer. Someone always should. The SOS that brought Deathworlders to the Warzone and the Iron. Wake dropped out of faster-than-light travel and entered Hell. Captain Junho had seen battlefields before. He had seen burning cities and broken armies. He had seen the worst that humans could do to each other. But he had never seen anything like this. The space around Velos IV was filled with death. Broken ships floated in every direction. Some were still burning, orange flames eating through metal in the vacuum. Bodies drifted past the view screen. Aliens of species Junho did not recognize, their forms twisted and frozen. Above the moon, the Harak fleet hung like a swarm of angry insects. Hundreds of ships. Warships with massive cannons. Carriers launching fighters. Bombers dropping fire on the surface below. The Concorde defense fleet was retreating. What was left of it, anyway? A dozen ships, most of them damaged, running away from the slaughter. Lieutenant Hana read the tactical display. Her voice was steady, but her face was pale. 300 enemy contacts, Captain. Overwhelming firepower. The Concorde forces are broken. They are leaving the refugees behind. Junho watched the Concorde cruiser explode on the screen. The Harak did not even slow down. They just kept firing. What about the surface? He asked. Heavy bombardment. The camps are being destroyed. Ground troops are landing in multiple locations. Hana paused. Sir, I am reading life signs. Thousands of them. They are concentrated in the central district. Thousands. Still alive. Still fighting to survive. Sergeant Taiwu stepped forward. His face was hard. Captain, orders? Junho knew what the smart choice was. Turn around. Run. Live to fight another day. The Iron Wake was one small ship against an armada. They would be destroyed in minutes, but somewhere down there, people were dying. People who had called for help. Take us in, Junho said. The bridge went quiet. Then Hana nodded and worked her controls. The Iron Wake accelerated toward the battle. The Harak noticed them almost immediately. 2 frigates broke from the main fleet and moved to intercept. They were 3 times the size of the Iron Wake. Their weapons were already charging. Enemy ships approaching, Hana reported. They are hailing us. Put it through. A voice filled the bridge. It was cold and sharp, like breaking ice. Unknown vessel. You have entered Harak territory. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. You have 10 seconds to comply. Junho looked at Taiwu. The sergeant smiled. Tell them, Junho said to Hana, that we decline. Hana sent the response. 3 seconds later, the Harak frigates opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked toward the Iron Wake. They hit the hull with thundering impacts. The ship shook. Alarms screamed. But the Iron Wake kept moving. On the Harak frigates, the weapons officers were confused. Their sensors showed direct hits. Their plasma should have melted through the enemy hull. But the Terran ship was still flying, still accelerating, coming straight at them. They did not understand. They could not understand. Human ships were built different. Earth was a hard world. Heavy gravity, intense radiation, violent weather. Everything on that planet wanted to kill you, from the animals to the plants to the planet itself. Humans had evolved to survive, and they built their machines the same way. The Iron Wake was not elegant. It was not beautiful. It was tough. Its hull was thick and layered. Its systems were redundant. It was designed to take punishment that would destroy any Concorde vessel, and it was designed to fight. Minho, Junho ordered, target their engines. Corporal Minho had never fired a weapon in real combat before. His hands were shaking, but when he pressed the trigger, his aim was true. Human weapons were different too. The galaxy used plasma and energy beams, clean, efficient, civilized. Humans used kinetic rounds. Chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. Primitive, the aliens said. Barbaric. Effective. The rounds tore through the first frigate's engine section. The ship spun out of control, venting atmosphere and fire. The second frigate tried to pull back. Too slow. The Iron Wake was already on top of it. "Boarding team ready," Taiwu said. He was already wearing his combat armor. His rifle was in his hands. Behind him stood 6 other soldiers, humans who had trained their whole lives for moments like this. "Go," Junho said. Taiwu's team did not wait for the ships to dock. They did not ask for the enemy to surrender. They cut through the hull with plasma torches and went in shooting. The Harak on the frigate were not ready for this. They had fought many species. They had conquered many worlds. But they had never faced anything like humans. Taiwu moved through the corridors like death itself. His armor took hits that would have killed an unprotected man. He did not slow down. He did not hesitate. He shot everything that moved. The Harak were tall, almost 3 meters. They wore heavy armor. They were strong and fast. On their homeworld, they were the apex predators. But so were humans. One Harak soldier charged at Taiwu with a blade. The sergeant sidestepped, grabbed the alien's arm, and broke it. The Harak screamed. Taiwu shot him twice and kept moving. Behind him, his team followed. They worked together like a pack, covering each other, communicating with gestures and grunts, moving through the ship like they had done it 1,000 times before. The Harak could not understand it. These creatures were smaller. Their technology was worse. They should have been easy prey. But they fought without fear. They took wounds that would have stopped any Concord species and kept fighting. One human soldier, a woman named Sora, took a plasma burn to her leg. The flesh melted. The bone showed through. She wrapped the wound with a piece of cloth, injected herself with painkillers, and kept shooting. The Harak watched in horror. What kind of species did this? What kind of creature could ignore such pain? They did not know about adrenaline. They did not know about the human body's ability to push through damage that should be fatal. They did not know that humans had spent millions of years hunting prey that was bigger and stronger than them, surviving by being more stubborn than anything else on their planet. 9 minutes. That was how long the battle lasted. 9 minutes, and the frigate belonged to Taiwu. The surviving Harak surrendered. They dropped their weapons and fell to their knees. They had never surrendered before, but they had also never been afraid before. Taiwu looked down at them. His armor was covered in blood, both human and alien. His shoulder was burned. He did not seem to notice. "Captain," he said into his communicator. "Frigate secured." On the bridge of the Iron Wake, Junho allowed himself a small smile. "Good work. Can you fly it?" Minho is figuring out the controls now. The other Harak frigate had fled. The Iron Wake and its captured prize moved toward the planet. The Harak fleet was in chaos. They did not know what had happened. One small ship had destroyed their frigates? Impossible. Far away, on the Concord command ship, Commander Auric watched his tactical display with disbelief. Auric was reptilian, with scales of dark green and eyes like yellow stones. He had been a warrior for 40 cycles. He had seen many things. He had never seen this. "What species is that?" he demanded. His officers scrambled to find information. Finally, one of them spoke. "Terrans, Commander. From the planet Earth? They are new to the galaxy." "New?" Auric's voice was sharp. "They just destroyed 2 Harak frigates with 1 patrol ship." "That is not new. That is insane." Ambassador Veleth appeared on his screen. Her compound eyes reflected the tactical data. "I have been researching them," she said. "Their homeworld is classified as a Class 12 death world. Everything there is hostile. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere contains a corrosive gas they call oxygen. The wildlife is predatory at every level. Oryx stared at her. They breathe poison? They require it to survive. And Commander, their species evolved as persistence hunters. They do not outrun their prey. They chase it until its heart gives out from exhaustion. They can run for days without stopping. Oryx felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. What have we encountered? He whispered. Velith's image flickered. I do not know, but they are heading for the surface. For the refugees. On the dying moon of Velos 4, Kessa was still hiding in her ruined building. She had stopped broadcasting. The communication array had finally died. Now she could only wait and pray to gods she was not sure existed. The bombing had stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then she heard something new. A sound she did not recognize. A roar of engines, different from the Herak ships. She crawled to a hole in the wall and looked up at the sky. A Vray ship was descending through the smoke. Small, angular, ugly. Not Herak. Not Concord. Something else. Kessa did not know what humans were. She had never heard of Earth. She had no idea what was about to happen. But she felt something she had not felt in days. Hope. The iron wake broke through the clouds and headed for the surface. Captain Junho stood on the bridge, watching the burning world below. Dr. Yuna, he said, prepare the medical bay. We are about to have a lot of patients. Yuna nodded and left the bridge. She had already seen the scans of alien physiology. Fragile, delicate. These creatures were not built for violence. That was why humans were going to save them. Taiwu's voice came over the communicator. Captain, I see the camps. They are underground assault. Herak soldiers are executing survivors. Junho's jaw tightened. Stopped them, with pleasure. The captured frigate descended beside the Ironwake. 2 ships. Barely 100 humans. Against an army of killers. It should have been impossible, but impossible was not a word. The SOS that brought Deathworlders to the Warzone. The Ironwake hit the ground hard. The landing was rough, but humans were not gentle creatures. They did not wait for perfect conditions. They did not ask for safety. They saw a problem and they ran toward it. The rear door opened before the dust had settled. Sergeant Taiwu was the first one out. His boots hit the ground of an alien world, and he did not stop to think about how strange that was. There was no time for wonder. The refugee camp was burning. Smoke filled the air. Buildings that had once been shelters were now piles of rubble. Bodies lay everywhere. Avians with broken wings. Insectoids with cracked shells. Children who would never grow up. Taiwu had seen death before. He had walked through villages in distant countries where war had taken everything. But this was different. This was slaughter. Move, he said to his squad. Find survivors. Behind him, Dr. Yuna set up a field hospital in the shadow of the ship. She had brought every piece of medical equipment she could carry. It would not be enough. She knew that already. But she would save as many as she could. The first patient was an avian child. Small, maybe 5 years old by human standards. Half of his body was burned. His eyes were closed. Yuna checked his vital signs. Still alive. Barely. Stay with me, she whispered, even though she knew he could not understand her language. Stay with me? She started working. Her hands moved fast. She had been a surgeon on Earth for 15 years. She had saved soldiers, victims, people that everyone else had given up on. She would not give up on this child. Across the camp, Taiwu's squad pushed forward. The Herak ground forces were everywhere. Tall soldiers in dark armor, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly light. They were dragging refugees toward execution pits, places where bodies were already piled high. Corporal Minho saw them first. He was young, but his eyes were sharp. He counted the enemy soldiers. 20, maybe more. "Sergeant," he said quietly. "Execution in progress." 50 meters ahead. Taiwu looked. He saw a group of Harak soldiers pushing refugees to their knees. He saw weapons being raised. He saw people about to die. "Engage," he said. The Harak never saw them coming. Human soldiers moved differently than the aliens expected. They did not march in formation. They did not announce themselves. They flowed through the ruins like shadows, using cover, working together, communicating without words. Minho fired first. His round took the lead Harak in the head. The alien dropped without a sound. Then chaos. The humans attacked from 3 directions at once. Rifles cracked. Grenades exploded. Harak soldiers fell before they could even react. The refugees watched in shock. They did not understand what was happening. Moments ago, they were about to die. Now strange creatures were killing their killers. Creatures they had never seen before. Small, soft, no armor, no scales, no shells, but deadly. Taiwu moved through the enemy like a storm. He fired until his rifle was empty, then drew his sight on. When that was empty, he used his knife. When an enemy got too close, he used his hands. A Harak officer charged at him with a power blade. Taiwu dodged the first swing, caught the second on his armored forearm, and drove his knife into the alien's throat. The officer fell. Taiwu pulled his knife free and kept moving. One of his soldiers, a man named Dongwu, took a plasma bolt to the chest. The armor held, but the impact knocked him down. Before he could rise, a Harak was standing over him, weapon aimed at his head. Minho appeared from nowhere. He hit the Harak from the side, knocking the alien off balance. Then he shot it 3 times at point-blank range. Dongwu got up. "Thanks," he said. "Thank me later," Minho replied. "More coming." Reinforcements were arriving. Harak soldiers from other parts of the camp, drawn by the sound of fighting. Dozens of them. Taiwu assessed the situation. His squad was outnumbered, outgunned, in hostile territory with no support. He smiled. "Fall back to the building," he ordered. "We hold the line here." The humans retreated to a half-destroyed structure. It was not much, but it had walls. It had cover. It was defensible. The refugees followed them. They had nowhere else to go. Mothers carrying children. Old ones barely able to walk. Wounded ones dragging themselves through the dirt. Taiwu counted them. Almost 100. All helpless. All depending on him and his squad to protect them. "Set up defensive positions," he ordered. "No one gets through." The battle that followed would become legend among the Galactic Concord. 15 human soldiers against an army. It should have lasted minutes. It lasted hours. The Harak attacked in waves. They expected the humans to break, to run, to surrender. Humans were soft. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that Deathworld species were dangerous, but these creatures did not even have natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no venom. They did not understand. Humans had something better than claws. They had each other. When Taiwu took a plasma burn to the shoulder, he ripped away the burning flesh with his own hands, wrapped the wound with a strip of cloth, and kept shooting. The Harak who saw this stopped advancing. They stared in horror. No species did that. No species could ignore pain like that. But humans were not like other species. Humans had evolved on a world where you either kept fighting or you died. There was no surrender. There was no giving up. You pushed through the pain or the pain killed you. The hours passed. Ammunition ran low. Humans started using captured Harak weapons. They were heavier, harder to aim, but they worked. The pile of enemy bodies grew. On the Iron Wake, Lieutenant Hana coordinated the defense. She had hacked into the Harak communication network, and was feeding false information to the enemy. She reported ambushes in places where no humans existed. She created ghost signals that drew enemy forces away from the real battle. It was not honorable. Humans did not care about honor. They cared about winning. Captain Junho was everywhere. He carried wounded refugees to the medical bay. He brought ammunition to the front lines. He fought alongside his soldiers when the enemy got too close. Dr. Yuna had not slept in 18 hours. Her hands were covered in alien blood. She had performed surgery on species she had never seen before, using drugs she was not sure would work, fixing wounds she did not fully understand, but she saved them. One by one, she saved them. The avian child with the burns woke up during the battle. His eyes were huge and golden. He looked at Yuna, at this strange creature who had pulled him back from death. "Who are you?" he asked in his own language. The translator in Yuna's ear converted his words. Yuna smiled. She did not know what to say. How do you explain humanity to someone who has never heard of Earth? "I am a doctor," she said finally. "I help people. Why?" "Because it is the right thing to do." The child stared at her. He did not understand. In his experience, species helped their own kind. Sometimes they helped their allies. They did not cross the galaxy to save strangers. But these creatures did. As night fell on Velos 4, the Harak assault finally weakened. Too many soldiers had died. Too much equipment had been lost. The commanders ordered a pause to regroup. In the ruined building, Taiwu sat against a wall. His armor was burned and dented. His body was covered in wounds. He was exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness, but they had held. A sound made him look up. One of the refugees was approaching. An avian. Young, gray and brown feathers. One wing damaged. Kessa. She had found them during the battle. She had hidden in the building with the other refugees, watching these strange creatures fight and die to protect people they had never met. Now she stood before Taiwu, her eyes bright with tears. "You came," she said. The translator made her words understandable. "You heard me. You came." Taiwu looked at her. This small, fragile creature who had sent a message into the void, who had hoped against hope that someone would answer. "We heard you," he said. "We came." Kessa did something then that Taiwu did not expect. She moved forward and pressed her head against his chest. A gesture of gratitude in her culture. A gesture of trust. Taiwu hesitated. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and placed it gently on her back. "You are safe now," he said. "We will not leave you." Outside, the sun was rising. The first sunrise in days that was not blocked by smoke and fire. The battle was not over. The war was not won. But for this moment, in this place, the refugees of Velos 4 were alive, and they would stay alive. Because humans had promised. And humans kept their promises. In orbit, Commander Auric's reinforcements finally arrived. They had expected to find the humans dead. Instead, they found a field of Harak corpses and a handful of blood-covered Terrans still standing guard. Auric looked at Captain Junho, who sat calmly on a broken wall, drinking water from a container. "Your species," Auric said slowly, "is insane." Junho shrugged. "We just do not like bullies." Auric stared at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time in his life, he laughed. He was beginning to understand what humans were. And he was beginning to think that maybe, just maybe, the war had changed. The SOS that brought Deathworlders to the Warzone, that the war had lasted for 17 cycles. That was what the aliens called years. 17 cycles of death, fire, and broken worlds. The Galactic Concord, a union of peaceful species from across the stars, was losing. Their enemy, The Harak Dominion was winning. The Harak were cold. They were cruel. They conquered worlds not for resources or land, but because they believed they were better than everyone else. Weaker species existed only to serve them or die. That was their law. On the dying moon of Velos 4, millions of refugees waited for death. They had fled from a dozen different worlds. Avian species with hollow bones and soft feathers. Insectoid species with compound eyes and thin shells. Reptilian species with slow hearts and cold blood. All of them were hiding in camps, in bunkers, in the ruins of cities that had been beautiful once. The orbital stations above the moon were burning. The Harak fleet had arrived 3 days ago. First they destroyed the defense ships. Then they destroyed the supply stations. Now they were bombing the surface, killing refugees by the thousands. There was no help coming. The Galactic Concord had abandoned them. The military commanders had done the math. Saving Velos 4 would cost too many ships, too many soldiers. The refugees were acceptable losses. That was the term they used. Acceptable losses. In a broken building near the center of the largest camp, a young avian named Kessa crawled through the rubble. She was small, even for her species. Her feathers were gray and brown, good for hiding. Her wings had been damaged in the first bombing. She could not fly anymore, but she could still think. And she could still fight. Kessa had found something in the ruins. A communication array. It was old and damaged, but it still had power. The previous owner, a Concord officer, had died trying to call for help. His body was still there, cold and still. Kessa pushed his body aside. She was not cruel, but she did not have time for the dead. The living needed her more. She did not know how to use the machine properly. She was not trained for this. She was just a refugee, a survivor, a girl who had lost everything. But she had watched others use communication devices before. She remembered the basics. She turned it on. The screen flickered. Static filled the speakers. She started pressing buttons, turning dials, doing anything she could think of. The machine began to broadcast. It sent signals out into the void, reaching for anyone who might listen. Any frequency. Any channel. Any direction. Kessa leaned close to the microphone. Her voice was shaking. Her heart was pounding. But she spoke anyway. "Help," she said. "Please. Anyone. They are killing us. They are killing everyone. Please, help." She repeated the message again and again. She did not know if anyone could hear her. She did not know if anyone would care. But she kept talking because it was the only thing she could do. Far away, in a region of space that the Galactic Concord barely knew existed, a human ship was traveling through the darkness. The ship was called the Ironwake. It was not a warship. It was a patrol vessel, small and fast, designed for scouting and escort missions. It had just finished a diplomatic assignment, carrying ambassadors to a meeting that had accomplished nothing. Captain Junho stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. He was tired. The diplomatic mission had been boring and frustrating. Aliens talked too much and did too little. That was his opinion. Anyway, Junho was not a tall man, but he had presence. His eyes were sharp. His jaw was strong. He had served in 3 conflicts on Earth before joining the space program. He knew what war looked like. He knew what death smelled like. Behind him, Lieutenant Hana sat at the communication station. She was young, barely 30, but she was the best tactical officer Junho had ever worked with. Her mind was fast. Her hands were steady. Nothing seemed to bother her. "Captain," Hana said suddenly. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. "I am picking up a signal." Junho turned. "What kind of signal?" "Distress call. All frequencies. It is weak, but I can clean it up." Hannah worked her console for a moment. Then she played the message. A voice filled the bridge. Small, scared, desperate. Help, please. Anyone. They are killing us. They are killing everyone. Please help. Junho felt something cold move through his chest. He had heard voices like that before. On Earth. In places where the powerful had decided that the weak did not matter. Where is it coming from? He asked. Hannah checked her screens. The Velo system. Far outside our patrol zone. Deep in the alien war zone. How far? 14 hours at maximum speed. Junho was silent for a moment. He looked around the bridge. His crew was watching him. Sergeant Tai Wu, the ground operations leader, stood near the tactical display. His arms were crossed. His face showed nothing, but his eyes were asking a question. Corporal Minho, the youngest member of the crew, sat at the weapons station. He was barely 25. He had never seen real combat, but he was listening to that voice, that desperate voice, and his hands were tied on his console. Dr. Yuna, the medical officer, had come to the bridge when she heard the message. She stood by the door, her white coat stained with the marks of a recent surgery. She said nothing. She did not need to. Junao knew what protocol demanded. Report the signal. Wait for orders. Do not engage. The Velo system was not their problem. Earth had no stake in the alien war. Getting involved would be dangerous, maybe suicidal. But Junho was thinking about his grandmother. She had told him stories when he was a child. Stories about a war on Earth, long ago. Stories about people who had called for help and no one came. Stories about what happened when good people did nothing. Lieutenant, Junho said slowly, send a message to command. Tell them we have received a distress signal from the Velo system. Tell them we are investigating. Hannah looked at him. Sir, command will order us to stay out of it. Then send the message after we are already gone. Silence on the bridge. Then Tai Wu laughed. It was a short, hard sound. Finally, the sergeant said, something interesting. Junho walked to the center of the bridge. He looked at his crew, these humans who had followed him across the stars. I will not order anyone to come with me, he said. This is not our fight. These are not our people. We do not know what we will find. We might die. Probably will die if the reports about the Harak are true. He paused. The voice was still playing on a loop. Help, please, anyone. But someone is asking for help, Junho continued. And I cannot ignore that. I will not ignore that. If any of you want to leave, I will drop you at the nearest station. No questions. No judgment. No one moved. Minho was the first to speak. My mother always told me to help people in trouble. I think this counts. Dr. Yuna nodded. I became a doctor to save lives. Does not matter whose lives. Taiwu cracked his knuckles. I have been bored for months. Let us go kill some bullies. Hana was already working her console. Course plotted, Captain. Ready to jump on your command. Junho smiled. It was a tired smile, but real. Take us in, he said. The Iron Wake turned toward the darkness. Its engines flared bright. And then it was gone, racing toward a war that was not its own, toward people it had never met, toward a future that no one could predict. Far away, on her dying moon, Kessa kept broadcasting. She did not know that someone had heard her. She did not know that help was coming, but it was. On a distant command ship, Ambassador Veleth of the Galactic Concord noticed something strange on her sensors. A small ship, primitive by galactic standards, had broken away from its patrol route. It was heading toward the Velo system, toward the war zone. Veleth checked the ship's registry. Terran, from the planet called Earth, a new species, barely known to the galaxy. They had only made contact with the Concorde a few years ago. She watched the ship's trajectory with her compound eyes. It made no sense. The Terrans had no military alliance with the Concorde. They had no reason to get involved. They were flying into certain death. What are these creatures doing? Velith whispered to herself. She pulled up the file on humanity. Class 12 Deathworld Origin. High gravity. Extreme temperature variations. Predatory evolution. Unusual endurance capabilities. Interesting, she thought. But irrelevant. One small ship could not change anything. She dismissed the notification and returned to her work. She would remember that moment later. She would remember how she had ignored the humans, how she had assumed they would fail, how she had underestimated them so completely. Everyone did, at first. That was their mistake.